Okay, so now it's being recorded. So what we're going to do is we can go through the one. This is a live event, and so for people that are listening on the recording, we can go through the. This is my YouTube channel, and the square box on there is the recording area because that's what's going to be recorded in the video. So, but you're looking at the whole channel.
Hey, Glenn, you're okay for Q&As to be?
Yeah, definitely ask questions. This is a live event, so people can, when they're watching the video, they might have questions, and so you guys might have the same questions. So I don't have a problem with questions. This is my YouTube channel. It's called Sovereign Living. See, this here is right here is They Want You Dead. That's already been published. It was published on the 31st of December, and it's got 2,000 hits already. And so that's actually not bad for me. It had over 1,000 hits on the first day, and so that's not bad for me. For my, channel, for what history is. There's some of my videos, like if you look at some of these videos, like this one with Dr. DeRusso was done on the 18th of December, and it's got 600 hits. So 2,000 hits is not bad. And then 2 days, 3 days, 2 days, 3 days. So the point is, though, is that we can go through this one called They Want You Dead, and I'll upload it as a live event, or we can go through.
It's going to overlap quite a bit, right?
I have there are going to be stuff that's going to overlap. That's true, and then there's You Are Enslaved, that talks about the same thing. Okay, and a slave is property, and you're owned. And if they can presume that you're enslaved, and we'll talk about that, maybe we'll go through this one. Because if you're enslaved, you're property, and then they can do anything they want, and they do. If you think you're owned, or they can presume you're owned, that's the reason the founding fathers, I'll tell you, the Second Amendment and the militias, that's the reason they wanted to make sure that was embodied in the Constitution. Yes.
Eminent domain, is that what they would do?
Sorry?
Eminent domain, is that what they would do?
Well, that's only part of it. We'll go through this one, I think, about You Are Enslaved, because it's very close to They Want You Dead, too. Because what happens is that, these wars, you understand about the wars, right? We'll go through it. And you'll see what we're talking about here. Because it's diabolically evil. It's satanic. It really is. And we need to know who the enemy is before we know how to fight it. And so that's why I do these videos. Now, there's ways you can deal with this, and I do deal with it, and they kind of don't want to talk to me, not the last time, but the second from the last time I got stopped by the cops. By the time they got my ID, they looked at it and they said, "Glenn Fern, you're Glenn Fern?" So they've been taking my name in vain. and obviously their chief told them not to bother this guy, sort of thing. You know what I mean? And so anyways, so we'll go through this You Are Enslaved. With my YouTube channel, they actually took it down twice. And when they take your YouTube channel down, they send you an email and they say, "We took your channel down, and if you have something to say about it, you can reply to this link." And I responded the same way both times. The first time they took it down, there was no strikes against it. There was nothing. They just took it down. And then the second time, they took down 4 of my videos, and then they said, we took down 4 of your videos. We're giving you 3 strikes. And when you get 3 strikes, you get your channel taken down. It was all done in one day. And so both times I responded the same way. I said, you're engaged in multiple felonies. You're violating my rights under the color of law felony. You're conspiring to threaten, coerce, injure, intimidate me in the free exercise of my rights, another felony. You're engaged in war crimes with your forced medical experiment and taking reprisals against me for my political beliefs, another felony. And you're subjecting me to your satanic religious ceremony with your fraud and deception and necromancy. Okay, necromancy is bringing dead things to life, and we're going to talk about that here. And so I'm going to sue your butt off. All your executive officers and board of directors are personally liable in their private capacity. Don't think I don't know what to do, because I've been to the U.S. Supreme Court 5 times. You're next. And 15 minutes later, my channel's back up. It's amazing how that works. So now I can't sue them. And so, anyways, so when you bring up the right issues, again, if you sue them in their official capacity, a lot of times they have immunity. But if you sue them in there, all you have to do is the courts have ruled that when they go outside their authority, they lose their immunity. So all you have to do is show that they had no authority to do what they did. And you can pierce right through that immunity. And now you can go after their house and their car and their motorboat. And so anyways, so we'll go through this one. You are enslaved. And if you have any questions while we're doing it, I don't have a problem with questions. That's good for the video, because people in the audience on YouTube might have the same questions. And so that's not a problem. So anyways, I've got a couple private groups on Google Groups and Free Lists. These are email groups where we share ideas on how to deal with things. I got a website called sovereigntyinternational.fyi. I got a blog, and then I also have exclusive videos on HowTube, and I have a channel on Rumble too. But Rumble, I have a problem uploading videos to Rumble, so I don't have a lot of videos there. Anyways, first of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I'm in a lawyer. No, I'm in a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I've provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything, and I'm open to any ideas. There's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? If you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. And this is taken from the Matrix, but everything is an illusion. It really is. Once you understand what's going on, it's all fraud and deception and an illusion. If the people do not know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? And that's basically what I try to do, is educate people about what the Constitution says. That Constitution was brilliant. There's a story about how at the Constitutional Convention, I was up in New Jersey, and a friend of mine insisted he wanted to go to see this constitutional area in Philadelphia. And so I went. I really didn't want to, but I went, and it was raining and miserable, and but we went, and I saw that room. That room that they held that constitutional convention was about the size of this room.
I was the one that was with you. Remember we looked at it.
Yeah,
that's all there was to it.
Yeah, it was you that drugged me there. Anyways, and they say there's a story. They had the doors locked and barred so people couldn't come and go out of the room during the event. But somebody showed up in that room. Might have been. They just know. They just know it was somebody that wasn't supposed to be there. And they told them how important it was that they were doing. So never forget the men who started this country were marijuana growing, whiskey drinking, tax evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the cops. And you think about that. You know, these guys were militias. I did a video on the militias. I did a couple videos, 3 videos on the militias. And in colonial days, everybody was required to be armed, the men especially. And if a man was found outside of town more than 2 miles and he didn't have his arm, he got a fine. And if he went to a public meeting without his arm, he got a fine. So, you know, it's a completely different environment than it is today. But that was why we have the Second Amendment. But more than that, there's more than that. There's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 and 16 too. Talks about calling up the militia. So there's a book by this Dr. Edwin Vieira called The Sword and the Sovereignty. It's like 2,500 pages. And he goes through, he's got a PhD, he's a lawyer, he's got a PhD in law from Harvard. And he goes through the colonial acts and what it was like, because you have to look at the Constitution from the perspective of when it was written. So he goes through the colonial acts. And it's quite interesting, very enlightening. Anyways, I've got a video about that. So they were, you know, left their beds at night to shoot at the cops. What they were doing is they were going and engaging the British, the most powerful country on the planet, and they'd go and engage them and kill them. So, you know, I mean, that's, talk about balls. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. I don't trust the military industrial complex. I don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust the bankster criminal cabal that owns the government, owns the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex, owns the military industrial complex, and owns the mainstream media. And if you call me a conspiracy theorist, I don't trust you. Government's not reason, it's not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. The greatest danger to American freedom is a government that ignores the Constitution, and we're there today. We are there today. So we have, this is in the Code of Law for the District of Columbia, 1901, found at 31 Stat 1432. Talks about in Chapter 854, Section 1617, it says the legal estate to be the cess de caius. Caius is Roman law for usufruct. Okay? And that's Roman law. Usufruct. So you're going to find that all over the place in here. This is actually taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, Volume 2, under the definition of mort main. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance by which lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fees to the use of the religious houses. Okay, so that's a usufruct. The use is a usufruct, is what they're talking about there. Thus distinguishing between the possession and the usufruct, and receiving the actual profits while the season of the land remained in the nomina fee, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, and that's the same thing today. Okay, all courts are admiralty maritime law courts, and that means it's the clergy. Okay, that's the Roman cult that is running all these courts under the rules of equity. To be bound in conscience to account to assesticate use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. Well, that's taxes. Think about it. And to assesticate usufruct, for the rents and emoluments of the estate. It is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of usufructs and trusts. Okay, usufruct is a type of a trust. The foundation of modern conveyancing. So, and it actually goes back to the Act of 1666. It's called the Sestakavi Act of 1666 in England. Okay, so I can guarantee you that the founding fathers were the same thing that was happening to them in colonial days is happening to us right now. They're doing the same things again. And we need to, that's why I try to wake people up about what's going on. This is Title 31, Code of Federal Regulations 363.6. A court means a court of law with jurisdiction over the parties and the subject matter. Subject matter jurisdiction. When they deny due process, they lose subject matter jurisdiction. So all you have to do is bring up denials of due process, challenge jurisdiction, and they have a problem. But most people don't have a clue about that. Entity means any owner. Oh, hold it. Now let's do something here. Let's do this one first. Individual means a natural person. A minor means an individual under the age of 18 years. The term minor is also used to refer to an individual who has attained the age of 18 years, but has not yet taken control of the securities contained in his or her minor account. Did you know that there's an account in your name with the Treasury? It's called a Treasury Direct account, and it's got your name on it. And if you haven't taken control of the securities, then you're considered a minor. You have no rights. Matter of fact, you fall under the Commerce Clause. This is, again, that slide we started on before. Court means a court of law with jurisdiction over the parties and the subject matter. Entity means any owner of a Treasury Direct account that's not an individual. Entity is a sole proprietorship, a partnership, a corporation, limited liability company, professional limited liability company, trust, the estate of a decedent, or the estate of a living person, such as an incompetent or a minor, okay? So you fall under the Commerce Clause. And under the Commerce Clause, that's property, okay? All corporations are property. They're owned. In the days of slavery, before the Civil War, the court cases talking about slavery were always talking about property rights. Okay, if you're a corporation, you're a slave. It's all fraud and deception. The banksters work under private international law. That's the Uniform Commercial Code. That's international law. Securities are fake money, and a usufruct is Roman law. So my contact information, I put this stuff, I spread it around because a lot of times I get going, and so this kind of helps me to chill out a little bit. Because sometimes I get going. Anyways, my blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. my YouTube profile, Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. And I have a private group on Facebook. And quite frankly, I haven't been to Facebook for months, maybe years. I don't go there. That's an NSA tracking facility, okay? They're collecting information about you. And so I don't go there. I regret having ever set up a profile there. And I would like to delete this group on there, but it's got 17,000 people on there. And if I delete myself off of the group will stay there, and Facebook will be making money off it. And so what I'd like to do is ban everybody off the group and then delete it, because then it'll really get deleted. But it takes time to ban 17,000 people off your group. You know what I mean? And so I just don't go there. I got a private group, email group on freelist.org called Administering Your Public Servants. I have a private group at Google called Administering Your Public Servants. I used to have one at Yahoo, but they took all the groups down. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. On HowTube, that's where my exclusive videos are, Sovereignty International. Rumble, Sovereignty International. Truth Social at Engineer Win. And I have a group called Sovereignty International on Truth Social, and Twitter, or which now X. What happened is they took like a lot of them did, they've been taking my profiles down. Twitter took mine down. And so a week or so ago, I went and contacted them and I said, I want to dispute, you took my profile down. And they said, so what were you doing that we took it down? And I said, well, I don't know. I was just putting links up to YouTube videos. And so then they brought it back and they said that it was an automated bot that took me down. So they got to protect their liability. I understand that. So I'm Engineer Win on Twitter or X, whichever way you want to call it. So civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence. That rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has peculiarly established for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish it from the law of nature and international law. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. So think about it. Civil law, Roman civil law, municipal law are convertible phrases. They all talk about the same thing. And I've got a set of books at home called Roman Law in America. And it talks about mortgages. It talks about negotiable instruments, those things that you have in your wallet that you think is money. That's actually fake money. Okay, the real money is gold or silver coin. Okay, that's the other stuff is fake money. Matter of fact, if all you have in your wallet, that fake money is IOUs for a bankrupt corporation. If all you have in your wallet is the fake money, then you're bankrupt. You're a pauper. And at common law, a pauper doesn't have any rights. That's the reason I always carry a silver eagle with me, because it says right on it, $1. So I'm not a pauper. So securities. So remember we were talking about that Title 31, Code of Federal Regulations 363.6, about that minor estate that has this Treasury Direct account and there's securities in it, okay? Well, on the U.S. Treasury website, it says a birth certificate's not a security. So you got to understand, in the law, everything is in the words, okay? So you have to know how to use the words. That's the reason when I told them at YouTube that they were violating my rights under the color of law, they were threatening me, coercing me, injuring me, intimidating me. Okay, those are all words that are in their statute. Okay, you got to use their words. And so if you use some other word, they'll ignore it. Okay, but I can tell you that I filed criminal complaints against them using their words, and I guarantee you there's people that go down and see them. The mayor of Bedford resigned recently because I filed attempted murder and suborning perjury charges against him and the city council, and the mayor of Bedford resigned, and I think it was because of that. But they never tell me. Okay, but it's amazing how many times I start filing criminal complaints and all of a sudden somebody resigns or disappears or something.
Yeah, remember what also happened to the Bedford Police Department too.
Yeah, right. Another one.
Yeah.
What happened is I sent a notice and demand out. Okay, and the notice and demand is designed to take away their presumptions. Okay, they presume. See, you have to understand we're under martial law. Okay, and we have been since the Civil War. When the Union Army invaded Galveston, Texas, Texas was put under martial law. That was 1861. And in Article 1, the Lieber Code. Lieber Code was written by Francis Lieber, who was a Harvard law professor for Lincoln. And in Article 1 of the Lieber Code, it says the physical presence of the Army declares it's martial law. They don't have to make a proclamation or anything like that. The fact that the Army's there, you're under martial law. And Article 2 says the martial law doesn't end until there's a specific mention in a treaty of peace. There was no treaty of peace between the United States and the Confederacy or Texas. And so there's no treaty of peace, or the martial law can end by a special proclamation by the commander-in-chief, who would be the president. There's been no proclamations, okay? There was an armistice between the ceasefire between the Confederacy and the United States. So that's all there was. And so the martial law continues. That's why you see the police wearing military uniforms. They have military rank structures. They're all military vehicles. They're military police. You have to understand that. It's all martial law. So under the Lieber Code, it says, I think it's Article 44, it says that any soldier or private that is caught pillaging, raping the inhabitants of the land, causing them injury, can be shot on sight after he's told to stop doing it. It says that. After he's told to stop doing it, if he continues to do it, you can shoot him on sight and kill him on sight, can be killed on the spot. And so that's called good faith, okay? And in Texas codes and in federal codes, there's good faith clauses. And it says that they can, and I might cover this here, I'm not sure, but they can claim good faith. So my notice and demand is designed to take away their good faith and put them in the position of honoring their oath of office. And so what happened with Bedford is I sent it to the chief of police. I sent it by registered mail. The chief of police himself signed for it on the green card. I have a green card, and it's got his signature all over it. And so then about 9 months later, one of his hired thugs arrested me and did all sorts of crap. So then I sent out a nasty gram. And I don't send out a lot of these nasty grams, but I do send out a few. But when I do send them out, I send them out to everybody and their brother, okay? Because I don't want having, if I send it out to him privately, then I could turn up dead and nobody'd ever be the wiser. You see what I'm saying? But if a bunch of other people get noticed about it, then he's got to be careful what he does. So I sent out a nasty gram. And the first paragraph of the nasty gram says, normally I say accept your oath of office, but you and I both know you have no intention of honoring your oath of office. So, and I use 4-letter words here. F your oath, you lying, perjuring MFSOB, okay? And you can imagine what those letters stand for, okay? And then the second paragraph says, if you or your pigs want a piece of me, just name a date, time, and location. I'll come armed. We'll settle it for once and for all. You lying, perjuring MFSOB. And then the third paragraph says, I know you'll never take me up on that because you're cowards. The first thing you want to do is make sure I'm unarmed, so I can't defend myself. You lying, perjuring MFSOB. And and it's like 20 pages of that, right? And I sent it to the FBI, I sent it to the U.S. Attorney, I sent it to the Texas State Police, of course I sent it to the Chief of Police, and I sent it to the Donald Trump, who was president at the time. And, they never tell me anything about what happens, but Darren was talking to the mayor of Bedford, that one that just resigned? He was talking to the mayor of Bedford, and the mayor told him that the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement had raided the Bedford Police Department and fired everybody in there except for 2 people, and they can't even use their own jail anymore. So it's amazing how many times stuff like that happens. So anyways, the point is that back to this. The birth certificate is not a security. Vince was telling me what is the security. It's evidence of a security, according to Vince, and that's entirely possible. But the Treasury website said it's not a security. But we got to understand what we know. Okay, we know there's a minor estate. Okay, it says it right in that Title 31 Code of Federal Regulations, and we know there's a Treasury direct account for the minor estate, and we know there's securities in it. And this is again. This 31 CFR 363.6, a minor means an individual under the age of 18. The word minor is also referred an individual who's attained the age of 18 years but has not yet taken control of the securities contained in his or her minor account. So the minor estate was created by birth, at birth, by fraud. Okay, there's people that try and capture this account. And you got to understand that this is all satanic. It's diabolically evil. And so if you want to try and capture the account, I'm not going to judge you or, tell you whether you should or shouldn't. I wouldn't. I would never do that. Okay? I want it dissolved. I want it dissolved and liquidated. And so, and I don't really care what you do with the fake money in there. It'll probably have to come to me. It's got to go to somebody, but I don't really care. I just want it dissolved. And so that's my attitude. I'm not going to participate. If you go and you participate in that, you're literally in a contract with the devil. Okay, so if you want to participate in that, knock yourself out. And I'm not going to judge you if you do. Everybody's got to decide their own path in life. But I know that I won't.
I got
So,
a question for you too.
Yeah.
On the Treasury direct account, that only applied to the United States. Like people come from Mexico, they come across the border. Do they have a Treasury direct account?
Well, you got to understand, the Treasury, the United States has not had a Treasury since 1921. We go through that in this presentation. Okay? The Treasury is now the International Monetary Fund. So, yes, they have an account. It's already in place.
Firstly, every citizen throughout the world has the account when they're born.
Anybody that's got a birth certificate.
Okay.
Now, there's people, and this is what I tell people to do, is moms, don't have your babies in a hospital.
Yeah.
Have them at home.
Yeah.
And don't register those births. Put it in the family Bible. That's common law way of doing it.
Yes.
Put it in the family Bible. And that's the common law way that it's supposed to be done. Anyways, if it's done in a hospital, okay, and we're going to cover that here, they're Satanists. Okay, that's all hospitalers. This is old. This goes back to the Crusades. Okay, hospitalers are it's a religious order. They're peddling pharmaceuticals. If you look up the Greek derivative of the word sorcery, it's pharmakeia. Okay, so they're peddling their sorcerers. The sorcerers peddling their pharmaceuticals. And so again, you're getting mixed up with Satan again. And so, everybody's got to follow their own path. I'm not going to tell you whether you should or shouldn't do it. My wife, I have 3 sons and 2 daughters. I never, ever call them children. Okay? Children fall under international agreements. Okay? So they're not children. They're sons and daughters, and they're posterity. It's all in the words.
Offspring.
It's all in the words. Offspring. It's all in the words. And if you use the wrong words, you just bought into it. And whether you intended it or not, they don't care. They'll enslave you in a heartbeat, and they do.
Well, have you ever, so the contract, right, you're not privy to, right, when they register you.
Well, so what happens is when people try and capture that account, and that's where I was going and I got sidetracked. People try and capture that account. One of the processes they do is they get the birth certificate authenticated. Okay? So part of the process that they get the birth certificate authenticated is they get an apostille from the state Secretary of State. And the state Secretary of State, when they apostille something, they certify the notary. That's all they do. They say this notary, because there is a notary on the birth certificate. They say this notary is a true notary. And then when you have to send it to the U.S. Secretary of State. And the U.S. Secretary of State certifies the state Secretary of State. So they'll say that this Secretary of State was a true Secretary of State at the time that this thing was certified. But they'll say in their letter, it'll say right on it, but we don't recognize the underlying document. The reason is because it's a fraud. And you have to understand that. So it's all a fraud.
Right. Otherwise, they're participating.
If you participate in the fraud, you can't claim fraud.
Right.
And so when you try and get that thing authenticated, you participated. And so, but the government, that's treason. Okay, they cannot do that. That's treason. So that's why they won't. They will never do that. That's perjury of their oath. That's what it is. And so they'll never, that's why they say we don't recognize the underlying document. Anyways, so back to the topic at hand. So there's a minor Treasury direct account associated with the minor estate and their securities in it. It's all a fraud and it's slavery because it's converting you into a fictitious entity, which is property under the Commerce Clause. And we're going to go into that. So a security. This is actually taken from the SEC's website. A security is a legal representation of ownership in a specific entity and ownership. Okay, ownership. It's a slave. Okay, if you're owned.
Ownership attaches the responsibilities of maintaining it. So anything that is not attended to by you, that they construe has been mishandled, therefore they come in to penalize you with it.
Well, and so, yeah, that's possible. Again, they can do all sorts of stuff. If they own you, then you're property and you're a slave and they can do anything they want, really is what it comes down to, until you stand up to them. And Edwin Vieira, in his 2500 book about the militias, he says that all political power comes from the barrel of a gun. And that's why the founding fathers rose up in rebellion and they were hunting British troops. And because they were getting enslaved, they knew it. While some individuals hold the misconception that a security must be actively traded on a market to qualify as such, the legal definition of security is more comprehensive and multifaceted. As we have seen in the crypto as a security argument as to whether they are financial securities. The definition bears substantial importance. Are financial securities, as it dictated, whether federal and state securities laws are applicable? In essence, the term security, I don't know why they did that twice, is defined broadly and extends beyond the confines of traditional stock and bond markets, and there are many different types of securities. It encompasses a wide spectrum of instruments, including but not limited to stocks, bonds, derivatives, options, investment contracts. These instruments are characterized by their role in representing ownership, debt, or participation in various investment endeavors, and they can take on diverse forms. So the point is there's a security, and it's in that Treasury direct account.
Everything is a security.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that's securities, for sure. So Then if you go to the Hague Convention on Private International Law, okay, remember we're talking international law. This is the convention concerning the international administration of estates of deceased persons concluded on 2nd of October, 1973. And any person, this is Article 22, any person who pays or delivers property to the holder of the certificate, that sounds like a death certificate now, okay? And so they can take that security and deliver it and collect on it, okay? And that's why they have these wars, okay? We're going to talk about that more too.
Yeah, I got a comment too. With that death certificate, the hospitals, once that is out, they're immediately calling you to get all the bills for the medical expenses that that person had when they passed away. It continues on.
Yeah, well, no doubt. But I just, that's a whole nother argument, but this is the Hill-Burton Act, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, where necessary, okay, so any person who pays or delivers property to the holder of the certificate drawn up and where necessary recognized in accordance with this convention shall be discharged unless it's proved that the person acted in bad faith. So again, this is like the Uniform Commercial Code. It's basically, it's presumed to be valid unless, and so a presumption is something that can be defeated. But if you don't know that that's what's going on, then you'll never know. Okay, it's all done in back rooms. Anyway, so this is where, and we're going to go into what that means. So they want you dead so they can pillage all the fake money in the Treasury direct account with the Treasury, which is the International Monetary Fund. They want you to exercise your right to resist their unlawful arrest, because that's all they do. I've never seen a warrant. Okay, they always say there's a warrant. Well, show me the warrant. And so then they just arrest you anyways. And so you have a right to resist. That's why I accused that mayor of attempted murder, because he wanted me to exercise my right to resist their unlawful arrest with lethal force if necessary, so they'd have an excuse to murder me, because then they get to collect all the money in the fake account. So either way, it's a win-win scenario for them. They're using it to enslave you, just like the pigs did to the guy in Utah last spring. I don't know if you saw that. There was a YouTube video where the guy had a homemade plate on his car, and the pigs stopped him, and he resisted their arrest, and they killed him.
Well, they knew him also.
Yeah.
They knew his mother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're just, it's all business.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of pirates. Okay, it's all business, and the chief of police was justifying it.
32 rounds they pulled out.
Don't get me going. You're going to get me going here.
32 rounds.
Anyways, yeah, I got to chill out here. This is the Amistad. Okay, I don't know how many of you heard about the Amistad. Story affirmed the right of self-defense by persons held illegally. In his own writings, he had admitted that a situation could arise in which the checks and balances principle ceased to work, and the various branches of government concurred in a gross usurpation. There would be no usual remedy by changing the law or passing an amendment to the Constitution should the oppressed party be a minority. Story concluded. If there be any remedy at all, it is the remedy never provided for by human institutions. That was the ultimate right of all human beings in extreme cases to resist oppression and to apply force against ruinous injustice. And that's from Mutiny on the Amistad by Howard Jones, an account of the reading of the decision in the case by Joseph Story of the Supreme Court. I think he was Chief Justice. Thank you. He was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court with the Amistad. And we're going to, right here, okay, United States versus Schooner Amistad, 1841. The Amistad was a slave ship. And the people took over the ship. They killed everybody except for one guy. And they demanded that he take them back to Africa because they didn't know how to sail. And the guy sailed in circles off the coast of Virginia until the U.S. Navy found him, and they were brought back and charged with murder. And it went to the Supreme Court. And there was two arguments. Either if they're a slave, they're no different than a dog or a cat, they're property, and a dog or a cat can't commit murder. Or they had every right to do what they did. And that the court said they had every right to do what they did, sent them back to Africa. So they want you, again, this is why they have these endless wars. The endless wars are to get you into their killing fields so their banksters can collect the fake money in the Treasury Direct account. But you can fight for your bankrupt corporation. According to Britannica.com, this was when they invaded Normandy in World War II. There was 135,000 U.S. casualties. There was 65,000 United Kingdom casualties. There was 18,000 Canadian casualties. Think about it. Think about all those Treasury Direct accounts, literally with millions of dollars in them. And who knows, some of them may be billions. I have no idea. But think about 135,000 times if it was just 1 million.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That would be like how many trillion?
Yeah.
Of the national debt that gets wiped out. 550,000 total casualties, both sides. You know, this is a big business for the bankster thieves. They get to create all this fictitious debt and then do a satanic blood sacrifice. Thank you.
That's what it is. That's the bigger deal.
That's right.
Sacrifice.
That's right. That's exactly what it's about. It's exactly what it's about.
And they knew they were going to get slaughtered too. You know, when they were getting
I know.
on the ship, they knew.
I know.
And they were forced to keep walking and get shot.
This is taken from, well, a lot of times if you didn't, your own corporal would shoot you.
Just do it.
That's right. Endless wars. This is taken from Britannica.com, and it talks about, you know, how many people got killed. Taxes were not raised to carry on wars. Wars were raised to carry on taxes. Thomas Paine.
Nice.
The war is not meant to be won. It's meant to be continuous. It's the bankster thieves making a bunch of money. And it's a satanic blood sacrifice is what it is.
And they
It's,
finance both sides.
of course they do. King George financed both sides of the War of Independence. I don't know if you know that or not, but that's actually found. There's a definitive treaty of peace of 1783, and there's also another treaty where United States agreed to pay back France 18 million livres because France financed the War of Independence. And when you look in the definitive treaty of peace, it says that King George was King of England, Ireland, and France.
Yep.
So he financed both sides of the war. It's big money-making business. After World War II, the United States was one of the most heavily indebted nations on the planet. By the 1950s, the U.S. was the least most indebted nation on the planet. They let Hitler escape because he facilitated their satanic blood sacrifice and made sure the banksters got paid. That's what it's all about. They're killing fields.
Yeah, supposedly Hitler went to South America, Australia.
Yeah, I know, Argentina.
Yeah, Argentina.
This is Section 3 of the Government Corporation Operation Act of Canada. Every corporation, for all its purposes, is an agent of the bitch. Well, now it's the son of a bitch. And then the Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act, Section 2 of this, in this act, owned means subject to the regulations. If you're subject to the regulations, you are owned. You are property. That's another reason that I won't follow their Code of Federal Regulations. I'm not required to follow their regulations. That's color of law. This is Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory, other property belonging to the United States. If you are subject to the regulations, you are owned. A U.S. citizen is other property belonging to the United States. So this goes back to again, Title 31, Code of Federal Regulations 363.6. An entity is a sole proprietorship, partner, corporation, limited liability company, trust, the estate of a decedent, or the estate of a living person, such as an incompetent or a minor. And a minor means an individual under the term age of 18. The term minor is also used to refer to an individual who has attained the age of 18 years but has not yet taken control of the securities contained in his or her minor account. This is 102 Stat 1344, Public Law 100-418, August 23rd, 1988. As used in this section, the term United States business means a United States citizen.
We'll do that. I'm sorry to interrupt. We gotta go, but thank you. Thank you.
So a United States citizen is a corporation. It's a fictitious entity. This is National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. And let me just read the underlined part, the second underline. Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power nationally covers those citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. You remember the Kavanaugh hearings? That's where Justice Kavanaugh was being appointed to the Supreme Court, and they had hearings in the Senate, and they asked him, can we go after a U.S. citizen in Afghanistan? And he said, yes, we can. It's because of the Commerce Clause. Because the boundaries of the District of Columbia expand as necessary. How far, how much they need to expand. They intend to assault you with their minor estate, to assault you with the Commerce Clause under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, and their plenary dictatorship jurisdiction in the District of Columbia. Okay? It's plenary. Plenary means a dictatorship. Says that Supreme Court right here called it plenary. Through their plenary power, nationally covers those citizens. Commerce Clause is a corporation, as property is a slave. If you're under the Commerce Clause, you are a slave. Status, condition, compare estate. So estate, minor estate, gee. A corporation has no status as a citizen outside the jurisdiction where it was created. A corporation's a citizen's a corporation. If they're assaulting you with their U.S. citizen slave, and you're in the District of Columbia. Law of status, a category law dealing with personal non-proprietary rights, whether in rem or in personam. It is one of three departments into which civil law is divided. Remember, civil law, Roman civil law, and municipal law are convertible phrases. They're bringing the District of Columbia outside 10 miles square in violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. And that's to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases over such district not exceeding 10 miles square. So again, they're assaulting you with the Commerce Clause. They have to. That's the only way they can do it. And so plenary, a court's full and absolute power over the subject matter and the parties in the case, that's a dictatorship. Plenary, full, complete, entire, Black's ninth. Plenary in Bouvier's Law Dictionary, in the Courts of Admiralty and English Ecclesiastical Courts, member, courts of equity are ecclesiastical. And they're all courts of equity, they're admiralty. This is actually Wikipedia, but it's very similar to Legal Information Institute. Otherwise, I wouldn't normally use Wikipedia because it's not really that good of a source. But it's same as Legal Information Institute, so I'm using it. Plenary. A plenary power or plenary authority is complete and absolute power to take action on a particular issue with no limitations. It's a dictatorship. It's derived from the Latin term plenus. Plenary power, complete power over a particular area with no limitations. This is Legal Information Institute. That's Cornell Law School.
Yeah, I remember, Glenn, that Obama would use drones in other countries to kill so-called terrorists without due process.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's part of that.
Exactly. It's Commerce Clause.
Yeah.
This term is often used to describe the commerce power of Congress under the Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. Excuse me. Congress is granted full power over interstate commerce. The court has found that states are not able to pass laws affecting interstate commerce without the permission of Congress. So if you're under the Commerce Clause, you are a slave. You have no rights except what Congress has allowed you. And if you want to argue Commerce Clause, then you're not going to do too well, in my opinion. You have to argue due process, okay? And that's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. This Constitution and Article 6, Clause 2. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the constitutional laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. Okay, so that's the notwithstanding clause. And so that means we don't care about what state constitution or laws say. So I think they deliberately put this in state codes because all you have to do is bring this up, and most people don't ever do it. They don't, I mean, you can demand a trial by jury. There's all sorts of things you can demand, and nobody ever does it. And they don't bring up this supremacy clause.
Right. So far, everyone that you've done on the challenge to sanity, they've never responded on anything.
That's true, they can't.
Right.
But remember, when we were dealing with Randy Kelton's father-in-law, and we brought up the trial by jury, and he actually said, we can only give you a jury trial. Right. And that was our moment that we could have brought up the supremacy clause, and we would have had that thing thrown out.
It got thrown out anyway.
It did anyways, but the point is we could have had it done then and there.
Yeah.
They routinely unlawfully arrest you with the objective of you exercising your right to resist their unlawful arrest, so the military police, pigs, can have an excuse to murder you. If they fail to kill you, they enslave you. Either way, you're under the Commerce Clause. All jails are commerce. They are engaging in their endless wars to get you into their killing fields. Either way, their bankster handlers get to pillage all the fake money in the Treasury direct account. It's a win-win scenario for them no matter what. They screen out intelligent people in the hiring process for their law enforcement officers. This is Jordan versus City of New London, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, case number 99-9188. Robert Jordan had a master's degree and scored too high on their test. He was too smart. They didn't want anybody with any brains doing that work. They want someone that's going to take orders. This is an ABC News article that talks about it. It says a man whose bid to become a police officer was rejected after he scored too high on an intelligence test has lost his appeal in a federal lawsuit against the city. There's two enemies of the people, our criminals and government. So let us tie down the second with the change of the Constitution so the second will not become the legalized version of the first. Well, I hate to say this, but the second has become the legalized version of the first because they ignore the Constitution. So you got to stand, you got to bring up the Constitution, and you got to stand your ground. That's the only way anything's ever going to happen. If you do it enough times, they're going to put you down in their database, leave this guy alone. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. Gee, that looks like what's going on nowadays.
Exactly, that's what happened. He warned us and we didn't do anything about it.
In doing this, I have occasioned, incidentally, to events how true it is that states and governments were made for man, and at the same time how true it is that his creatures and servants have first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master and maker. A state like a merchant makes a contract. A dishonest state, like a dishonest merchant, willfully refuses to discharge it. The Founding Fathers went through exactly the same thing that we're going through right now. Statutes have been passed. This is the cause of necessities for taking up arms, 1775. Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits, for depriving us of the accustomed and inestimable privilege of trial by a jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial, and for altering fundamentally the form of government established by charter. We saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. It's a dictatorship they're talking about. They knew exactly what was coming. This is McCullough versus Maryland. This is why they can never, you do the challenge to standing, they'll never answer it. The sovereignty of a state extends to everything which exists by its own authority or is introduced by its permission. But does it extend to means which are employed by Congress to carry into execution powers conferred on that body by the people of the United States? Remember, in the preamble of the Constitution, it says, "We the people." We think it demonstrable that it does not. Those powers are not given by the people of a single state. They are given by the people of the United States to a government whose laws made in pursuance of the Constitution are declared to be supreme. Consequently, the people of a single state cannot confer a sovereignty which will extend over them. Think about it. And this is brilliant. That's why they'll never even try doing the challenge of standing, and they'll never even try, they presume. That's why they have to use that minor estate. The sovereignty of the United States resides in the people, and Congress cannot invoke the sovereignty of the people to override their will as declared in the Constitution. The state citizen is immune from any and all government attacks and procedure absent contract. Every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He's not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. The power which is derived cannot be greater than that from which it is derived. That's a maxim of law. Bouvet's Law Dictionary, 1856 edition. Nor does the conclusion by any means suppose a superiority of the judicial to the legislative power. It only supposes that the power of the people is superior to both. My opinion is, and has long been, that the mayor and aldermen of a city corporation, or the present directors of a bank, or the present directors of a railroad company, or other similar corporations, are the true parties that sue and are sued as trustees and representatives of the constantly changing stockholders. A corporation, therefore, being not a natural person, but a mere creature of the mind, invisible and intangible, cannot be a citizen of a state or the United States and cannot fall within the terms of the power of the above mentioned article and can therefore neither plead nor be pleaded in the courts of the United States. That's U.S. Supreme Court 1852. Obviously, the 14th Amendment changed that a little bit, but they still cannot mix. Okay, so corporations can sue corporations, but corporations cannot sue a man.
That's a critical case right there.
It is, absolutely, and it's fatal to them. Territorial courts. The United States District Court is not a true United States court established under the Constitution, Article 3. There's only one real Article 3 court, and that's the Supreme Court, and that's only in certain circumstances. Anyways, to administer the judicial power of the United States, but was created by virtue of the sovereign congressional faculty granted under Article 4, Section 3 of making all needful rules and regulations respecting territory belonging to the United States. Remember, we talked about that.
All set.
Yeah, and that's Puerto Rico. A court can be a court of general jurisdiction for some purposes and a court of limited jurisdiction for other purposes. Therefore, a court of general jurisdiction proceeds when, therefore, a court of general jurisdiction proceeds under a special statute, it becomes a court of limited jurisdiction for the purposes of such proceedings. So all of these courts are general jurisdiction, but when they proceed under statute, which is always, then they become an inferior court of limited jurisdiction. And that's
They take you from the Article 3 court and put you into the administrative Article 1.
Exactly.
And you're dealing with the judges and clerk then.
Yeah. And this is Book 21 of Corpus Juris Secundum, and then also in Book 20 of American Jurisprudence, 2D, accordingly, where a court of general jurisdiction undertakes to carry out a special power, a decision made in the exercise of such power is treated as a ruling of a court of limited jurisdiction, and the presumption applicable to a court of general jurisdiction that it acted within the scope of its jurisdiction does not apply. So, again, it's not an Article 3 court. So, judges collect royalties. They collect them on all these cases. That's why it's under a statute, right? They drawing a complaint under 31 Stat 1366. This is all in the Code of Law for the District of Columbia. Issuing a warrant, issuing a commitment. They sell you into slavery, they get a royalty from that. Entering a return, issuing a subpoena, drawing a bond, administering an oath, recognizing a recognizance of witnesses, transcripts, certifying depositions. All of this stuff, the bought and paid for a whore is getting a royalty. And so these are all statutory things. It is familiar law that when a special statutory authority in derogation of common law is conferred on courts of general jurisdiction, such a court of general jurisdiction becomes quad hoc a court of inferior or limited jurisdiction. And I want to thank Vince for bringing that to my attention. The word administrative is synonymous with the word executive. The word administrative, and this is what this recent case with the SEC, what they're talking about. The word administrative connotes of or pertains to administration, especially management, as by managing or conducting or superintending the execution, application, or conduct of persons or things. Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. Thus, administrative acts are those acts which are necessary to be done to carry out legislative policies and purposes already declared by the legislative body. In fact, it is common to use the two words in tandem. What is proclaiming martial law is really no law at all, but merely for the sake of public safety and circumstances of great emergency, setting aside all law and acting under military power. So, again, we're under martial law.
You think that started whenever the South walked out, right? For the Civil War?
Well, it started when the Union Army invaded Texas. In Texas, it started then.
Okay.
I think, and I'll bet you it'll be proved out, but remember, the reason the Civil War started is because the South was supposed to have fired on Fort Sumter, remember?
Yeah.
And I think that was a false flag operation.
False flag.
I'll bet you it was. But the South, you know, I took a little bit of U.S. history in college, and the Southern generals, they had, or the Southern slave owners had all this free time on their hands. And so they were practicing military drills and doing all sorts of stuff. So they thought they'd win. And, you know, that was like a major mistake for the South, in my opinion.
Well, of course it would be. Any life that's someone's murdered, no matter what side, it's still going to die.
I agree.
Well, it was still over. I mean, the whole issues that precipitated it were the same issues that have participated everything else here in America. It was taxation without representation. It was, you know, forcing tariffs on the people. You know, the Yankees were pissed off that all of a sudden all of these Southerners had the money and position in Congress to start influencing things, and so it was just, you know, I mean, it was just like everything else that's ever been started. It had nothing to do with slavery. There was just as many slaves in the North.
Right.
You know?
Well, a different kind of slavery. And they turned us all into slaves because of it.
Exactly. You know?
That's why they have to pass statutes for common law offenses. That's why all statutes are edicts under martial law. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by statutes. They'd be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by martial law. And that's Judge A.H. Ellett in the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment related to the case Diet versus Turner. There are no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command. That sounds like statutes. That means all federal courts are in derogation of common law. Think
Even
about it.
murder is not really
No,
according to their law.
it's because it's martial law. Murder is legal under martial law. And they can claim good faith. So they can go and kill you and say, oh, gee, I'm so sorry. So that's what I send them when I send my nasty gram, is I say, and at the very end, I say, before God, angels, and these witnesses, anybody who reads this as a witness, I shake the dust of the earth, mop my feet against you. And if one of your code enforcers, if I'm really lucky, when one of your code enforcers comes up, maybe I'll get to blow his brains out first. But the first words out of my mouth is, oh, gee, I'm so sorry. I thought he wanted to do a commercial transaction. Anyways, don't get me going. Under a military dictatorship, there is no law, which is why they're required to pass statutes for common law crimes like murder and assault. This creates civil law, which creates democracy. Under a military dictatorship, you have a democracy. Democracy is international law. Always challenge jurisdiction. I've got exclusive content available on howto.com. It's $9.99 a month for the videos plus unlimited email consultations. But I'm not a liar. Well, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not a liar. But I can tell you what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find the forms. The only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit. But I cannot fight all the battles. I need people being on point. So some of my exclusive content is an Arlington private information share with 7 videos by itself, land deed training, estoppel certificates training, foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll roads notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation signature training, third-party witness training, federal habeas corpus training, revocation of voter registration, criminal complaint training. I've got like about 3 videos up there about that, and I need to put some more. Lawsuit training, I've got 1 video on that, and I need to do some more. Other training requests, I've also got, and a lot of it depends on if I haven't done it already. A lot of, if you go on my website, there's a link on the front page of my website to free videos, and those are links to YouTube videos. And so I would suggest that if you go there, because my YouTube videos are hard to find on YouTube. And so if you go there, there's all of my videos, or most of my videos, organized by topics. And they're links. They're just links to YouTube videos. It's on that page. Anyways, so one of the videos I need to do is on petition for writ of mandamus. But every state is going to be different, okay? All the states have different laws about mandamuses. And so all the videos taken down by YouTube are going to be in my exclusive videos. First views of new uploads will be on my exclusive videos. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free, linked on my videos and on my website. All exclusive content will be on HowTube, and you can buy a subscription there. And it's HowTube Sovereignty International. And I have no control over that at all. I cannot accept cryptocurrencies. You're going to have to get the billing through HowTube, however they do it. I think they take a credit card, but I don't know. But I have no control. I can't add anybody. You know, you have to buy the subscription. That's the only way you can do it. And said Supreme Court shall divide the said district into 10 subdistricts and prescribe the place in each subdistrict where the district justice thereof shall have his office for the transaction of business, and may change the boundaries of such subdistricts and locations of the offices of the justices therein from time to time as the volume and convenience of the business may require. This is Code of Law for the District of Columbia, 1901, 31 Stat 1190. All corporations, that's why these corporations are in zip codes. They always put them in zip codes. All government offices are in a zip code. United States Postal Service is a corporation domiciled in the District of Columbia. And I have a video that I'm coming out with that talks about how the United States Postal Service, they had the U.S. Post Office. They didn't need the United States Postal Service. The only reason they did that is because they needed a corporation, okay, so to do the zip codes. And that's why they did it. Should a suit be brought against any party or corporation in any district in which he or it does not reside or hold business, a plea to the jurisdiction on this account may be filed by said dependent. The party or corporation interposing such plea shall disclose under oath the district in which he or it should have been sued. And that's a Code of Law for the District of Columbia, 31 Stat 1190 and 1191. So the Code of Law for the District of Columbia has, at 31 Stat 1280, a chapter called corporations, and it's huge. So all corporations are in the District of Columbia. Remember, National Mutual Insurance Company versus Tidewater Transfer Company said that. To regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. If you're in the District of Columbia, you are a slave. They can do anything they want. When you incorporate into the government. Everything subject to regulations is government property. A corporation is a franchise of the government. Corporation equals property equals slave. Yes.
The Indian nation now, they actually agreed to become a corporation too, didn't they?
A lot of them have, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Municipal corporations.
Yeah, so it could be a few Indian tribes that are still sovereign.
Well, most of them have done that because they can take advantage of oil revenues and stuff like that, and and again, it's an opportunity for corruption too. Anyways, my new book is available. Trump, a true American patriot or not? Mike Blackwell asked me to write the book, and he hired a company to help us with that, and so the company put this on the back of the book, and I think they nailed it. And Trump, a true American patriot or not? Glenn Fern and Mike Blackwell reveal the depths of corruption, deceit, and manipulation infesting our political system for hundreds of years, regardless of political affiliation. Read the hard evidence that exposes how our elected officials sold Americans into slavery. Understand the Founding Fathers' true intent when they formed our Republican form of government. Discover the influence of the satanic Roman cult on our politicians and political system. Does Donald Trump want to transfer power back to we the people? In Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. And I think that it just nails it. They did it really good there. So you can order the book on Amazon, or you can buy it at my website. It's $40 plus shipping. And my website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. Amazon does not provide autographed books, so if you want it autographed, you got to order it from my website. I've got some out in my car if you want one. Do you want to know the origins of the deep state? Who's behind it? It's in the book. Do you want to know why it's called the Trump administration? It's in the book. Do you want to know what an administration is? Do you want to know how Trump came to be president? He was invited. I can tell you that. He was invited by the military. I think, my opinion, that book is 99% provable facts, but there's a little bit of my opinion And my opinion is that the entire Trump administration is a giant military psyop, and I think it's still going on. Anyways, do you want to know who owns Congress? Why do you think Pelosi would get up there and say, we can't read this bill until after we pass it? She's taking orders from the owners. That's exactly what's going on. You want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? Maybe it's because they're enforcing the martial law. Do you want to know how you have become a slave? We've been talking about that all during this presentation. You want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was? It's the same thing that's going on right now. It's in the book. You want to know why every president goes to visit the pimp? Well, I meant the Pope. No, I meant the pimp on their first international trip. It's in the book. So I already told you about Mike Blackwell. Jerome Corsi. He is a guy that lives up in the Northeast. He's got a YouTube channel, a website. He's got a PhD in political science from Harvard. He's a pretty smart guy. And there's a YouTube video with Jerome Corsi where he says that in 2015, 5 generals came to see him, and they said they were going to overthrow Obama. And he said, well, you can do that if you want, but you might want to go talk to Donald Trump first. 3 months later, he gets a phone call. Donald Trump they decided not to overthrow Obama because Donald Trump had agreed to run for president. So that's his invitation.
He also almost got put in prison.
Who did? Oh yeah. He was part of the Mueller investigation. Yeah. And what happened is his wife said, I'd rather come and visit you for 30 years in prison than have you plead to something you didn't do. And so he refused to plea bargain it, and they dropped the charges. So it's 95% provable facts is some opinion. I use court cases, law dictionary definitions, international treaties, everything to support everything I say in there. But there's a little bit of opinion. And so some of the opinion is, I don't know how many of you remember Howard Hughes. He was a billionaire. He was a recluse. At least that's what everybody was told. Actually, he was pretty reclusive. My opinion is that all of these billionaires get approached by the New World Order crowd, and they get told you're going to go along with our program or you're going to turn up dead. And I think that Donald Trump was approached. Some of the evidence of that is this 1984 helicopter crash. I started out working on helicopters in 1976, so I know a little bit about helicopters. And I know why they crash. And I have never, ever heard of a helicopter crashing because the way this one crashed. The blades came off. Those blades do not come off of helicopters. Those bolts are life limited, and they're replaced, before they ever get to where they're fatigued or anything like that. But I've never heard of a helicopter crashing for that reason. 3 of Trump's executives got killed. And Trump canceled out the last minute. He missed the flight. And I think they tried to kill him, and I think that he knows that's why he had his own private security when he was in the White House. So, and then David Wilcock. And this goes more to Howard Hughes because there's a David Wilcock video. He's got a website called Divine Cosmos, and a YouTube channel called Divine Cosmos. And he says that after World War II, Howard Hughes got blackballed. Remember, Howard Hughes was a big industrialist, and he built the Spruce Goose that was in Long Beach Harbor. I've heard they've moved it up to Washington now. But anyways, because there was shortages of metal, and so he built this airplane out of spruce. That's why it's called the Spruce Goose. Anyways, what happened is he got blackballed, so he got some young ladies to go and sleep with the military-industrial complex types and find out from Pillow Talk what they were planning on doing. And that's when he found out they were planning on overthrowing the government and having pandemics and epidemics and wars and doing all sorts of stuff to kill off a bunch of people. And so he went and had a set of manuals published that was instructions on how to defeat the whole thing. And so what happened is Kennedy was implementing that stuff. Remember, Kennedy circulated $6 billion worth of U.S. Treasury notes. That's like telling the banksters, you're done. And so they killed Kennedy, they killed his brother, they killed all sorts of people. And so I think Howard Hughes figured he was on their list. That's why he was hiding out. Anyways, so that's according to David Wilcock, but I think he's right. In reality, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. You know, a lot of people say that Donald Trump has controlled opposition. I don't know if he is or not. I like to think that he's working for us, but regardless, even if he's not, if we the people get off our backside and start taking care of business, then it doesn't matter anyways, because the president really has very little power, and if we the people take care of business, then he's got no power. This is taken from the Declaration of Independence, and this is the same stuff that went on then as is what's going on now. This is because Declaration of Independence, you got to understand, it's a list of grievances. So there's a preamble, and then a list of grievances, and then a postamble. And so this is the list of grievances, part of it. He's endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others, to encourage their migrations hither. Gee, that sounds like open borders. And election interference, you know. I'll bet you that's what that is. There's other people that have said that it might be something else. I don't know. But he's obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. Gee, that sounds like kangaroo courts. He's erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. Gee, that sounds like military police everywhere, code enforcers, all sorts of busybodies snooping into what is none of their damn business. He's affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil law. That's martial law, and that's certainly going on. He's combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution, unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. Well, pretended legislation, that's color of law, and it's all color of law. For protecting them by a mock trial. Well, that's kangaroo courts. Kangaroo courts, show trials, denials of due process. If there's anywhere that you'll get your rights violated, it's in the so-called courts. And it can go either way. If they want to get someone off the hook, they'll find some reason that they got them off the hook. And if they want to sell you into slavery over something stupid like Jim Tessier, they put him in jail for 38 years for a seatbelt ticket. And so for transporting us beyond seas to be tried and pretended offenses, that's bringing color of law outside not exceeding 10 miles square. For abolishing a free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule. And so that's bringing the District of Columbia dictatorship outside not exceeding 10 miles square into these colonies. That's exactly what they're doing. For imposing taxes on us without our consent, okay? Somebody said taxation without representation. Well, that's a bunch of crap. That's a diversion, okay? It's taxes without our consent. Where's the bona fide contract? I want to see a contract. And there never is one. It's martial law again. Don't get me going. You're going to get me going here. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government, military dictatorship, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. That's dictatorship. He's abdicated government here by declaring us out of protection and waging war against us. Well, that's martial law military dictatorship under the Trading with the Enemy Act. That's exactly what's going on now. He destroyed the lives of our people, populating the jails with commercial transactions. Texas has a bigger percentage of people in jail than the worst communist dictatorships, more than China, more than the Soviet Union. Penitentiary has meant a penitent, an ordainer of penitence, a place for penitents. Did you know that? That's where penitentiary came from. That's a satanic, that's the Roman cult. Penance is a punishment imposed for a crime by the ecclesiastical laws. It's an acknowledgement of offense. Penance may be changed into a sum of money to be applied for pious usufructs called commuting. Remember, Trump commuted Roger Stone's sentence. That's like he paid him off. He paid off the Roman cult. And so, anyways, don't get me going. The U.S. shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government and a well-regulated militia being necessary to a free state. And so the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And this is so brilliant. At the end of the day, that's why we have to have guns. There's more arms in the hands of the American people than there is in the army of every other army on the planet combined. And so what they're saying is that the UN's going to come in here, and there's people going to come out of the woodwork. Basically,
We hope.
well, I suppose that's Cliff High says that people will come out of the woodwork. I have no idea about that. But that's what he says. People will come out of the woodwork, basically to target practice on those nice blue helmets. Anyways, so we'll see. Check out my other videos. Bankster Thieves playlist, Roman cult playlist, bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bar members 1 through 8, do-it-yourself, how not to volunteer for the selective serpents and the draft, the killing fields, martial laws here, do-it-yourself no income tax, do-it-yourself free mail, do-it-yourself kangaroo courts, Canada Border Pigs playlist, bar members and their satanic connections playlist. Sad will be the day when the American people forget their traditions and their history and no longer remember the country they love, the institutions they cherish, and the freedom they hope to preserve were born in the throes of armed resistance to tyranny and nursed in the rugged arms of fearless men. Well said. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. Therefore, non-resistance to tyrants is obedience to Satan. Think about it. That's well said, too. Check out my channel. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. This is the front page of my channel. The subscribe button's already clicked because otherwise it'll be red. The bell is not clicked. The arrow's pointing at the bell. And once you click on the bell, it looks like it's vibrating. That's for notifications. They've been telling people for decades that we're in a democracy. Do you think that's an accident? Anybody who calls it a democracy is engaged in treason. Quite frankly, it's a republic. Patrick Henry coined the phrase, "Give me liberty or give me death," after witnessing a man flogged to death for refusing to take a license. Well, think about it. A license is a contract. So if you don't want to do business with us, then we'll flog you to death. Okay, this is the same mentality that's going on today. The corrupt.
Just in maybe you have a license to practice law.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. You let these bar members from Britain come in and they're the ones controlling the courts.
So,
Right. Yeah.
speaking of bar members, speaking of what Mr. Webb was talking about FARA, FARA.
Right. Foreign Agents Registration Act.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't. Yeah, that's right.
Be like, oh, well, I didn't I? Or you can say, hey, you're not registered as a FARA.
Yeah, they won't ever let you see the bar member's oath of office, but they all have an oath of office.
It said to the constitutions. I read one of them. It said to the constitutions.
Is that right? Wow.
It's plural. Really?
There is no license to practice law.
Yeah.
There is no license.
The corrupt Star Chamber courts of England required defendants to have counsel. Okay, Star Chamber stood for swiftness and arbitrary power as a limitation on the common law. So again, that's executive. Remember, we were talking about executive courts, executive branch. This is Admiralty Star Chamber. It may embrace also the vehicles and persons carrying it on. It would be in the power of Congress to confer admiralty jurisdiction upon its courts over the cars engaging in transporting passengers or merchandise from one state to another, over the persons engaged in conducting them, and deny to the parties the trial by jury.
Bingo.
See what I'm saying? This is U.S. Supreme Court, 1851.
Hold on, go back to that one real quick.
The technical niceties, I can send you a PDF of this.
Okay, cool.
The technical niceties of the common law are not regarded. A jury does not figure ordinarily in the trial of an admiralty suit. The verdict of the jury merely advisory and may be disregarded by the court. The rules of practice may be altered whenever found to be inconvenient or likely to embarrass the business of the court. Yeah, right, eh? A court of admiralty acts upon equitable principles. Remember, that's the ecclesiastical court. A libel of information does not require all the technical precision of an indictment of common law if the allegations describe the offense, and it is all that is necessary if it is founded upon a statute, and it is sufficient if it pursues the words of the law. Remember, the words are everything. So this is, again, an inferior court of limited jurisdiction. Although the right to self-representation is not a license to abuse the dignity of the courtroom, neither is it a license for the court to impose upon the defendant its own choice of counsel. The defendant's Sixth Amendment right to choose counsel or to proceed pro se is an essential part of his right to a fair trial. So this is George III, Chapter 12, 1778, 2 years after the Declaration of Independence. Whereas taxation by the Parliament of Great Britain for the purpose of raising a revenue in His Majesty's colonies, provinces, and plantations in North America has been found by experience to occasion great uneasiness and disorders. Well, no shit, Batman. That from an act of the passing this act, the King and Parliament of Great Britain will not impose any duty, tax, assessment, whatever, payable on any of the colonies, provinces, or plantations in North America or the West Indies, except only such duties as may be expedient to impose for the regulation of commerce. It was all for the regulation of commerce. This is CYA crap is what this is. Taxes caused the War of Independence. If they can tax you, then you are their slave. You're forced to work for them for nothing. They are busy turning you into their slave so they can tax you and then murder you and collect the fake money in the Treasury direct account. That's exactly what's going on, folks. There's two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by sword, the other is by debt. So there's two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One's by the sword, the other's by debt. When acting to enforce a statute and subsequent amendments to the present day, judge of municipal court is acting as an administrative officer, right? Executive agency, not in a judicial capacity. Courts administrating or enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely act as an extension, as an agent of the involved agency, but only in a ministerial and not a discretionary capacity. They're bought and paid for clerks. It's the accepted rule not only in the state courts but in the federal courts as well that when a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions of the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes. As a ministerial clerk for the agency, they're bought and paid for. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, and otherwise act as mere clerks of the involved agency. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislatures. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. Their orders, their judgments, they're all a fraud. They can't issue orders, they can't issue judgments.
They can't issue warrants either.
No, they can't. That's why they had to do the capias. It's a fake warrant. Where there's no jurisdiction, there's no judge. The proceeding is as nothing. Such has been the law in the days of Marshal Saya. And that's Manning versus Ketchum, which is a federal case, citing Bradley versus Fisher, that's U.S. Supreme Court, citing Coke, 10 Coke 68. That's in the 1500s. So this is as old as time itself. Judge wears a military uniform. Judge sits there and plays stupid. If you fail to follow some obscure rule, or procedure, they sell you into slavery. That's what they do with their property, okay? They enslave you. Everything they do is a fraud and a nullity. Judge works with state, prosecutor works with state, police or witness works with state. The vast majority of the disputes that the police initiate on behalf of their employer are also adjudicated by their employer, where the plaintiff, the judge, the antagonist, the police, the only witness, also the police all represent the same party. And since no corpus delicti, mens rea, or acts reus can be produced, doesn't technically qualify to be heard according to its own laws. The state, therefore, is indistinguishable from a criminal cartel. They are a criminal cartel. They're pirates. Think about it. That's what they're doing.
And they say you're going to get a fair trial.
Yeah, right. I believe you. Want to buy a bridge? But in fact, an loss of statutes are intended to be applied to those who are here as residents in the state under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Federal Constitution and not the so-called 14th Amendment. And that's U.S. versus United Mine Workers, U.S. Supreme Court, 1947. They intend that you exercise your right to resist their unlawful arrest so they can murder you. This is what they do to slaves. They intend to get you and your sons and daughters into a killing field so they can murder you. Either way, their bankster thieves can pillage all the fake money in the Treasury Direct account. Treasury Direct account in the International Monetary Fund, which is agency of the World Bank and an agency of the UN. This is all coming from the UN, folks. Copies of these documents can be found on my website and linked under my recent YouTube videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information, shares a DVD with over 100 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the fake money, the forced loans, the securities, the cash app, gifts, checks, money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars. Hospitallers. Remember we were talking about hospitallers. Were the knights of a religious order, so-called because they built a hospital at Jerusalem where pilgrims were received. And that's Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 1. And then babies born in a hospital are given a birth certificate, which is, or there's something else that's a security. They're given a security, the beginning of the minor estate for the bankster thieves. The Greek derivative of the word sorcery is pharmakeia. Hospitals are full of sorcerers peddling pharmaceuticals. Have your babies at home, moms. Put it in the family Bible. You can get these big, huge family Bibles that have places where you can put marriages and births and all sorts of stuff in there.
And then they're going to have, when a person's down in the hospital, they're going to want you to talk to hospice, and they want to comfort your loved one.
Yeah, right.
And give
While they kill you.
Give morphine, and you basically are killed.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a current, Dr. Joe gave me this one. He was invited to join this one. This is a sacred medical order of the Knights of Hope. This is an order and diocese special medical and sacred ministry as an ecumenical order. Membership in the sacred medical order by an invitation of both men and women are of good character, standing in the community, want to learn about sacred medicines, who wish to help suffering mankind. So these are more hospitallers.
They're the sacrificers.
And most of the people that are in hospice are preachers that come talk to you.
Yeah, no doubt. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime where the party shall have been duly convicted. Okay, this is where that's the current 13th Amendment, which replaced the real 13th Amendment. And then even the courts say it. He, the prisoner, has as a consequence of his crime not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights except those which the law and its humanity affords him. He is, for the time being, a slave of the state. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and maketh merchandise of him or selleth him, then that thief shall die, and thou shalt put evil away from among you. That's Deuteronomy 24:7. If there were any Christians in this country, these Satanists would be getting their necks stretched. Don't get me going. You're going to get me going now. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. We can have a benevolent dictator or a tyrant dictator. Obama was a textbook tyrant. Pelosi gets up and tells the House we can't read this bill until after we approve it. Lindsey Williams is a guy that he was a Southern Baptist preacher that went to the Alaska oil pipeline to preach the gospel, and they liked what he was doing, so they gave him a room in their camp, and they invited him to their board meetings and all sorts of stuff, and so he got to know some of the elite. And so for the last 30 years, up until about 3 or 4 years ago, he was going around saying that this is what the elite are saying they're going to do. And they knew he was doing it, and they were giving him the information. The elite, he knew them. He knew a bunch of them. And so every 2 or 3 times a year, he'd put out a video and say, this is what the elite are planning on doing, and then you'd watch it happen.
They tell us what they're going to do in advance.
Of course. Anyways, when Trump won his election, the elite told Lindsey Williams that God had intervened. Yeah. When Trump won that election, the elite told Lindsey Williams that God had intervened, and as long as Trump was in power, their plans were on hold, and as soon as Trump was back in office, they were going to be back in business. And gee, isn't that what you're seeing nowadays?
Full steam ahead.
Full steam ahead. We, the people, are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who would pervert the Constitution.
Like him?
Yeah, really. I agree. This is whitehouse.gov. Janet Louise Yellen of California to be United States Governor of the Inter-American Development Bank, the United States Governor of the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the United States Governor of the International Monetary Fund. Janet Louise Yellen. Oh, that's repetitive.
You think she's a relative of the Rothschilds?
I think she's deep state for sure.
Well, I know she is, but she didn't seem like she's that bright.
No, she's actually. I heard that she's. What's her? Cliff High talks about it. I think it's Cliff High says that she has a degree in financial accounting. Anyways.
You got financial accounting 1 and 2.
Something like that. Anyways, President Biden announces 3 key nominees, and the important one here is Elizabeth Shortino, nominee for United States Executive Director of the International Monetary Fund. Okay, so there's an executive director, and there's also a governor. And so Janet Yellen's the governor, and this is the executive director. And then Biden announced that the United States is nominating Ajay Banga, a business leader with extensive experience leading successful organizations in developing countries and forging public-private partnerships to address financial inclusion and climate change, to be president of the World Bank. So they appoint all these people. This is all coming from and here's how it's all organized. This is the International Monetary Fund. The executive board, the G7, G20, G24, the board of governors. This is the International Monetary Fund, and how it all, the organizational chart, I guess you might say. Tyranny. John Locke, and I am really surprised. I got this from what's his name? From Edwin Vieira's book, and because I'd like to get that book. 2 Treatises of Government by John Locke, Book 2, Chapter 18, Section 199 and Section 201. Tyranny is the exercise of power beyond right, which nobody can have a right to. And this is making use of power anyone has in his hands, not for the good of those who are under it, but for his own private separate advantage. When the governor, however entitled, makes not the law, but his will the rule, and his commands and actions are not directed to the preservation of the properties of his people, but to the satisfaction of his own ambition, revenge, covetousness, or any other irregular passion. 'Tis a mistake to think this fault only in monarchies. Other forms of government are liable to it as well as that. For wherever the power that is put, excuse me, for wherever the power that is put in any hands for the government of the people and the preservation of their properties is applied to other ends and made use of to impoverish, harass, or subdue them to the arbitrary and irregular commands of those who have it, there it presently becomes tyranny, whether those that use it are one or many. This is what the Founding Fathers were reading. And, we need to understand that. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. It's time to get unplugged. The refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system which freed the ordinary man, from the clutches of the money manipulators was probably the prime cause of the revolution. America needs God, and so we need to repent. It's what we need to do. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, Exodus 20:3. The New World Order will require that you worship government. This is going on in China right now, the Falun Gong, that they're doing their organ harvesting programs. Think about it. They're busy collecting the fake money from the Treasury direct accounts from their Falun Gong victims for their bankster buddies. That's exactly what they're killing a bunch of people so they can collect the money. And harvesting their organs too, get to sell the organs. The end of democracy and the defeat of the American Revolution will occur when the government falls into the hands of lending institutions and moneyed in corporations. Boy, ain't that the truth. A republic is the only form of government which is not eternally at open or secret war with the rights of mankind. It's the war is getting to be quite open. If once the people become inattentive to the public affairs, you and I and Congress and assemblies, judges and governors shall all become wolves. It seems to be the law of our general nature in spite of individual exceptions. Never trust a government that doesn't trust its own citizens with guns. This is Colonel Edward Mandell House. We talked about this guy earlier in a private meeting with Woodrow Wilson. Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property in the national system designed to keep track of the people that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as a chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register or suffer not being able to work or earn a living, okay? Now, required to register their biological property. That's babies, folks. Their biological property. Every American will be forced to register or suffer not being able to earn a living. They will be our chattel, and we will hold the security interest over them forever by operation of the law merchant under the scheme of secured transactions. Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly delivering the bills of lading to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent, forever to remain economic slaves through taxation secured by their pledges. And it goes on. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit. That's what you're seeing at Title 31, Code of Federal Regulations, Section 363.6. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit. And they will be none the wiser, for not one man in a million could ever figure our plans. And if by accident one or two would figure it out, we have in our arsenal plausible deniability. Remember, good faith. After all, this is the only logical way to fund government, by flowing liens and debt to the registrants in form of benefits and privileges. This will inevitably reap to us huge profits beyond our wildest expectations and leave every American a contributor to this fraud. And if you participate in a fraud, you cannot claim fraud, which we will call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will insure for us any loss we may incur, and in this manner, every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly, The people will become helpless and without any hope for their redemption, and we will employ the high office of the president of our dummy corporation to foment this plot against America.
Yep. The Uniparty.
Yep. I believe the banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. If the American people ever allow the private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation and deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around the banks will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both. We now live in a nation where doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, universities destroy knowledge, governments destroy freedom, the press destroys information, religion destroys morals, and our banks destroy the economy. You must realize that there is no government helping you. Only a corporate-controlled and bankster-funded mafia enslaving you. And that's so true. It's the Matrix. They want you dead. They have pandemics, forced medical experiments by their sorcerers peddling their pharmaceuticals, poisons in the food you eat and the water you drink, exposing you to lethal EMF frequencies, showering you with poisons, chemtrails, endless wars to get you into their killing fields, unlawful arrests for fake crimes, slavery in their prisons where they can subject you to their poisons in the food and drinking water. The real domestic terrorist is right there, and they want you dead. In 2003, the UK government passed a new law which exempts them and under the water companies from all claims as a result of disease or death from fluoride in the drinking water. Ask yourself why. MK Ultra, trauma-based mind control. MK Ultra is a sadistic CIA project that involves satanic ritual abuse. Victims are drugged, hypnotized, traumatized, given electric shock treatment, etc., to rewire their brain. These mind control zombies have been used as spies, assassins, sex slaves, and even as celebrities. Through Project MK Ultra, CIA handlers have created Manchurian candidates willing to act on command even against their own conscience. Between 1945 and 2005, the United States has attempted to overthrow more than 40 foreign governments and to crush more than 30 populist nationalist movements struggling against intolerable regimes. In the process, the U.S. has caused the end of life for several million people and condemned many millions more to a life of agony and despair. And that's from William Blum of the U.S. Department of State. Operation Mockingbird was a fully implemented CIA program to spread disinformation throughout American media. CIA Director William Colby testified to the Church Committee that over 400 CIA agents were active in U.S. media to control what was reported through American mainstream television, newspapers, and magazines. They want you dead. CIA. Copy and paste this on all stories, flood them with the truth. So the shoe bomber was the CIA. The Beltway snipers were CIA. The Fort Wood shooter was CIA. Underwear bomber was CIA. USS Colt bombers were CIA. The Madrid train bombers were CIA. The Baffy nightclub bombers were CIA. The London subway bombers were CIA. Moscow theater attackers were CIA. Boston Marathon bombers were CIA. Pan Am Flight 93 bombers were CIA. Air France Entebbe hijackers, CIA. Iranian embassy takeover was CIA. Air France, the Beirut U.S. embassy bombers were CIA. The Libyan U.S. embassy attack was CIA. The Buenos Aires suicide bombers were CIA. The Israeli Olympic team attackers were CIA. The Kenyan U.S. embassy bombers were CIA. The Saudi Khobar Towers bombers were CIA. The Beirut, they're all CIA, and I could keep littering. Oh, the September 11th, 2001 airline hijackers were CIA. Think about it.
Do they ever get prosecuted, either the CIA agents?
Well, some of them did. Epstein, I mean, well, he went and I guess they killed him or suicided him or something.
Yeah.
But also, what's her name? Ghislaine Maxwell. She's in jail.
Well, she's in jail now?
Yeah.
That's the rumor anyway.
Yeah, that's the rumor. Yeah, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I feel about, that's what I feel about Epstein. I mean, who's to say he's not kicking back on Virgin Islands, private
knows?
island over there?
You got that
You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah. I'm Pablo Escobar. You may know me as the greatest drug trafficker of all time. Forbes named me one of the richest people in the world for 7 consecutive years since I was making $420 million a week, smuggling 80% of all the cocaine in the United States. But did you know my son just revealed that it was all made possible because I worked for the CIA?
Yeah.
The CIA owns every one of any significance in the major media. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. And those are both William Colby. One was when he was CIA director and former CIA director. Deception is the state of mind and the mind of the state. The CIA owns every one of any significance in the major media. Weapons of mass deception. NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, Politico, CNN. Hey, CIA, is that a drug war you're running, or are you just running drugs? You know, if there's a bust, it's the CIA taking out their competition. Really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
4 tons of cocaine on board a CIA plane that crashed. Oops. The CIA, when we're not making up evidence, we're destroying it.
That's right. That's a good one.
A true republic cannot have a secret government like the CIA that meddles in elections all over the world, and as we're finding out with the latest news too, in America too. Our fearless protector, FBI, licensed to kill anyone we want, anytime, any place, without any fear of punishment. Pentagon Inc., masquerading as private companies, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon. So this is what happens when you're property, when the government has all the guns. This is what happens when you're property. This is what they do with their property. Just following orders. There's some government property laying there on the ground. I was just following orders is never a valid excuse or justification for immoral criminal behavior, and this lame attempt to abdicate personal responsibility should never be accepted as a valid excuse for such behavior. But there's a lot of order followers, let me tell you. Every great injustice has been at the hands of someone just following orders. Oh, look at there's some more law-abiding citizens and some property, the government. Brave soldiers just doing their jobs. Those who make their fortunes from you being sick are the same people who tell you that what will make you well. Death by medicine. Oh, some more government property getting ready to get buried. Oh, some more government property. Oh, some more government property. If you're property, this is what they do with it. We had grasped the great truth that it was not rifles, not tanks, not atom bombs that created power, nor upon them that power rested. Power depended upon public obedience and upon a willingness to submit. And why does the government want to ban semi-automatic rifles? Because they know you won't get into boxcars willingly. They want you dead. China established gun control in 1935, and from 1948 to 1952, 20 million political dissidents unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. The Georgia Guidestones, we all know that that's been destroyed, but they wanted to reduce the population of the planet down to 500 million people, right? That means, what, about 13 out of 14 of us would be not here. Who's really to blame? After all, there are over 7 billion of you and just a handful of us. Ask yourself, who pulls the trigger? Who drops the bombs? Who pays the taxes? Who borrows the loans? Who buys the myths? Who writes the zone? Who shuns his neighbors? Who looks the other way? And who sits around waiting for someone else to fix it all? Take a close look in the mirror. You might not like what you see. Everything got burnt except the passports, and 2 planes brought down 3 buildings. That's for the sheep. The so-called Patriot Act was a fascist manifesto. Watch my recent video about the United States as a fascist dictatorship. Fascism is a merger of corporations and state. They want endless wars. They want pandemics. They want forced medical experiments. They want unlawful arrests. They want anarchy and murder. They want chemicals, chemtrails. They want lethal EMF radiation. They want kangaroo courts. And when you turn up dead, they get to pillage all the fake money in the Roman cult Sestike usufruct, minor estate account, treasury direct account with the International Monetary Fund. So it's a win-win scenario for them. Think about it. When you get sick, their sorcerers get to sell some pharmaceuticals. When you get really sick, their hospitaller sorcerers get to peddle some pharmaceuticals, and maybe they get to butcher you up before you turn up dead. And then when you turn up dead, they get to pillage all the fake money in the Roman cult Sestike usufruct, minor estate treasury direct account with the International Monetary Fund. It's a win-win-win scenario for them no matter what happens. Think about it. Just look at everything as backwards. Everything is upside down. Doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, universities destroy knowledge, governments destroy freedom, the major media destroys information, and religion destroys spirituality. It's all Satanism. The United States is third in murders throughout the world. If you remove number 1 Chicago, number 2 Detroit, number 3 Washington, D.C., number 4 St. Louis, number 5 New Orleans, the United States is then 189th out of 193 countries in the entire world. P.S. All 5 cities have strict gun control laws and are run by the communists. And gee, I like that equipment, and that girl there is my kind of girl. War is when your government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution is when you figure it out for yourself. In 1774, the original assault rifle was banned from import. In 1775, the British attempted confiscation. And in 1776, there was a revolution. When liberty and freedom are at stake, your silent isn't golden, it's yellow. I didn't say it would be easy, I said it would be the truth. So this is the Declaration of Independence, and this is the preamble, and we'll just look at the stuff that's underlined because there's quite a bit here. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces the design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. I think it's getting close to that time, you know. We can still take it back, but, you know, the people need to start getting together and doing something about it. But there's a lot of people waking up in droves, so we'll see. But meanwhile, you're enslaved, and so it's either we're having to find out, just like what the founding fathers found out, is live free or die. You know, are you going to be a slave or are you going to be free?
But the people had to take action, not just wake up, but take action.
That's right. Well, it's part of it is wake up first. And so according to what Cliff High said, that there's going to be some stuff that's going to happen real soon, like this month. And and you're going to start seeing people, like he said, that you'd see people, like you go into a grocery store and there'd be like 20 people in there and they'd all have assault rifles. Somebody'd come in and rob the store and they just blow them away, and the cops would come and take the body and wouldn't ask any questions. Kind of like the Old West, I guess, you know what I mean? And so, that's sad, but that's what it's going to come down to. And we, the people, need to step up and start taking care of business. Anyways, are there any more questions? This is the end. That's the end of it. So if there's any questions, now's the time. I'll bet you got lots to think about, that's for sure. This was a long one. Like right now, it's 2 hours.
Okay, let me take one real quick here.
I have one.
Francine has a question.
Let me get the
I
mic.
have one thing.
You want the mic? Okay.
No. Yesterday, and this is what I read, and I don't know if it was a hoax or if it really happened. But yesterday, around 3 o'clock Central Time in the morning, an open letter was sent out to the American people. This letter was signed by over 361 high-ranking military. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Yes.
No, I haven't seen it.
Yes, I saw it. It was signed very formally, very well written. It's 1-page PDF, but it's actually 12 pages when you include the signatures. Over 361 high-ranking veterans, military veterans saying, listen, the bottom line is, those in office or those that have been in charge, they're not doing anything. We're going to hold you accountable. On top of that, we're going to, through our efforts, commit to taking back our country no matter how long it takes. But we are going to hold you accountable. And they even name those high-ranking military individuals that they're going to hold accountable. It's a very well-written document. I was very proud to read it. Was anybody else?
Yeah, I read it.
It was
Well,
good.
read it.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you could send that out. I think I could see a video on that.
Yeah, I wanted
Is it
to.
very long?
She said it's 1 page, but with the signatures, it's 12 pages.
She's going to read it.
I don't have it on.
Okay, I'm going to let you read it. I have it.
Do you have it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read it.
Well, can I get you to read it into the mic?
Sure.
Talk about your progress. The actually,
I think this is all part of Trump's comeback, quite frankly.
Okay, this is it. Let's do the letter. I know this mic.
An open letter to the American people from signatories of this Declaration of Military Accountability. Our Constitution was made only for our moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other, not ours. In the course of human events, it sometimes becomes necessary to admonish the lawless, encourage the faint-hearted, and strengthen the weak. We have reached just such a time in our history. The affairs of our nation are now steeped in avaricious corruption, and our once stalwart institutions, including the Department of Defense, are failing to fulfill the moral obligations upon which they were founded. Standing upon our natural and constitutional rights, we hereby apprise the American people that we have exhausted all internal efforts to rectify recent criminal activity within the armed forces. In the Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers sought separation. We seek no separation, but through this letter and the efforts we pledge herein, we pursue restoration through accountability. We intend to rebuild trust and restore the rule of law, particularly within the armed forces. Ultimately, we strive to once again become a loyal people, restoring our nation and making it again worthy of the great gift of liberty won by the colonial era American people. While implementing the COVID-19 vaccine mandate, military leaders broke the law, trampled constitutional rights, denied informed consent, permitted unwilling medical experimentation, and suppressed the free exercise of religion. Service members and families were significantly harmed by these actions. Their suffering continues to be felt financially, emotionally, and physically. Some service members became part of our ever-growing veteran homeless population. Some developed debilitating vaccine injuries, and some lost their lives. In an apparent attempt to avoid accountability, military leaders are continuing to ignore our communications regarding these injuries and the laws that were broken. For General Miley, Admiral Brady, General McConville, Admiral Gilday, Admiral Lesher, General Brown, General Berger, General Smith, Vice Admiral Kilby, Vice Admiral Mello, Vice Admiral Fuller, Lieutenant G. Martin, Lieutenant General Davis, M.G. Edmondson, General Williams, Admiral Fagan, Vice Admiral Buck, Lieutenant General Clark, M.G. Francis, L.T.G. Dingle, Lieutenant General Miller, Rear Admiral Gillingham, and numerous others. These individuals enabled lawlessness and the unwilling experimentation on service members. The moral and physical injuries they helped inflict are significant. They betrayed the trust of service members and the American people. Their actions caused irreparable harm to the armed forces and the institutions for which they have fought and bled. These leaders refused to resign or take any other action to hold themselves accountable, nor have they attempted to repair the harm their policies and actions have caused. Since there is yet to be any accountability, the undersigned give our word to do everything morally permissible and legally possible to hold our own leadership accountable. We intend to rebuild trust by demonstrating that leaders cannot cast aside constitutional rights or the law for political expediency. The flag and general officers are far from the only ones complicit in recent illegal activities, as a significant number of SES leaders and political appointees contributed. Evidence indicates that other executive agencies are engaging in illegal activity. However, as service members and veterans, we feel particularly responsible for the DoD, and in accordance with our oaths, we will make every effort to demonstrate by example how an institution can't put its own house in order. We, the undersigned, on behalf of hundreds of thousands of service members and the American people, while appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for guidance and purity of contention, mutually pledge to each other that we will do everything in our power through lawful word and action to hold accountable military leaders who failed to follow the law when their leadership and moral courage was most desperately needed. In the coming years, thousands within our network will run for Congress and seek appointments to executive branch offices, while those of us still serving on active duty will continue to put fulfilling our oaths ahead of striving for rank or position. For those who achieve the lawful authority to do so, we pledge to recall from retirement the military leaders who broke the law and will convene court martials for the crimes they committed. For those of us who attain legislative offices, we pledge to introduce legislation to remove all retirement income for the military leaders who were criminally complicit, and we will ensure none service in our retire. And we will ensure none serve or retire from senior executive service. This endeavor will be a continuous process with long-term time horizon, but fulfilling our oath to defend the Constitution requires such persistent vigilance. Likewise, we are obligated and so commit to train those who come after us to fulfill their duty in achieving this accountability and safeguarding against such leadership failures hereafter. Our nation was once great because it was good. It was built on moral principles founded in natural law, and yet the recent acceleration of moral relativism has us headed towards a precipitous implosion. While all good things come to an end, we refuse to allow our nation to go quietly into the depths of decadence and decay. We promise to exhaust all moral, ethical, and legal means to restore the rule of law, and will begin by attempting to hold senior military leaders accountable. The Constitution is the supreme law of our land. We will fight to enforce that law and put an end to the two-tier justice system. May future generations see our efforts, and God willing, they may also be recipients of the greatest gift of liberty that we have had the honor of safeguarding. And then it's signed.
I like it.
Wow.
This is a major step forward. It's taking
So when did this-
step forward.
When did this come out?
Yesterday morning at 3 a.m.
Wow.
Central.
That's good.
I will forward this to you.
Yeah, I'd like it.
I'm sure you could do a great podcast on this for.
You gotta do that update pretty quick when all your subscribers don't know about that.
Well, I think that when Trump was invited by the military, I heard, okay, there's a lot of rumors. I heard that there was 200 generals that were behind him, retired and active duty. And now it's like 360 or something like that. And so it's expanding. But if you go onto Wikipedia, they say there's like over 600 generals in the U.S. Armed Forces. So that's a big percentage. And I think that, but I think also people are waking up as to what's going on. And yes.
I did just send it to your email, so you can even pull it up and look at all those signatures.
Which email?
ME.
I can text it to you.
To which email did you send it to?
ME.
Oh, me.
Yeah, me.
Well, there's more than one. I see it. I see it.
I texted it to you.
I don't do much on my phone, so that probably wouldn't help me much. 1st of January, 2024. Wow, wonderful.
Look at all those signatures.
Right.
The Brad Swain 81 at gmail.com. Wow, look at all those signatures.
Can you blow that out?
Can I what?
Can you make it bigger?
Yeah. Let me.
Zoom it. Zoom to the Zoom.
There are a lot of veterans who said that they would go, they put their uniform back on right now. They might not be, even the ones that are way older, they're not physically fit, but they could be for other things. They don't like what's going on.
Oh, it's contributed by Epoch Times.
See, their oath didn't end when they
I
retired.
know,
They still have an oath.
I know.
It's a good job reading that, because I know that there was some like
Maybe there was something about doing it for this year, but then on January the 1st. So maybe something significant about doing it the first day of the year.
Okay, so General Milley, Admiral Grady, Vice Admiral, Lieutenant General Martin, Lieutenant General Davis, Major General Edmondson, General Williams, Fagan, Miller, Lieutenant General Miller. He's the Provost Marshal General. That's kind of interesting because I've been sending him my stuff. But, so that's okay. I think the stuff that goes to the Provost Marshal General probably winds up with the Attorney General, and he's not much better. You know, what's his name?
Garland.
Garland, yeah.
Oh, man, that's just pathetic.
Scumbag.
Pathetic.
Yeah, no joke.
Garland.
Anyways, so that's as big as I can get it right now. But that's like hand signed, that's each one for sure.
They're wet signatures.
Yeah, right.
Most of them are blue, it looks like. There's some black.
But there's a lot of them, like there's commanders, but there's just people that are saying veteran. You know, means they could have been just
Are they
like,
active duty or retired?
well, yeah, exactly. They are retired, or at least were in the military at some point.
So they probably wouldn't sign if they were active.
It's hard to say. But there's a lieutenant colonel, staff sergeant. I'm just trying to see how many generals are here. I'm not seeing too many generals. Commander, that's equivalent to a general, Commander U.S. Navy. Lieutenant U.S. Navy is, you know, Tech Sergeant U.S. Air Force.
I would just send a petition that 5 people sign petition.
Petty Officer 2 U.S. Navy. Flight paramedic. Captain U.S. Air Force, so that's
Lee Merritt?
Yeah.
Lee Merritt?
Lee Merritt.
Yep,
She's on there.
yep.
So she's connected with the military then.
Oh, yeah, she's a former commander, U.S. Navy.
She's what?
She was a commander in the U.S. Navy.
She was
And that's
sur-
when
surgeon.
she was, well, it says here, former
Goodness gracious.
she was first talked about the DMED database and the vaccine injuries and what she was seeing in the military.
Oh, yeah, I remember her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got some. She's on Rumble.
Yeah.
But so I don't see a lot of generals on here. There's a few,
I don't.
but there's just a lot of people, you know, and so and certainly you know.
You wonder if their military pensions would be at risk for signing all of this, right?
But they've got some blackouts. So
I don't know how it could be. I mean, they're swearing to support the Constitution. They're saying we got to get back to the Constitution. So I can't see how their military pensions would be at risk.
Glenn, those signatures at the very bottom that are blacked out.
I see that. What about them?
Do you think they're blacked out because those individuals they're at greater risk, maybe?
No idea. I mean, a tech sergeant, U.S. Space Force, U.S. Space Force. Maybe that's he needs to. It could be people that need to have security issues.
Well, and the reality is all the ones that are blacked out, only 2 of them are retired. The rest of them are probably active duty.
Oh,
Right.
Okay, well, yeah, so they would be at greater risk.
So, anyways,
That guy named Schuler that came out and he said that they were improper, they were going to put him in prison, military prison. And he fought it because of all the press. And he won, but it's because of all the press.
Yeah, I would love to see you do a show on this because it does not look like it was a hoax.
so there's 200. There's 21 on each page, and so that means 11 pages. So that means 210, and then 21, 230,
230? Okay, well, maybe.
233 actually total. Of course, as long as that last page, it might not have 21 on it.
What they really need to do is get a hold of some distribution list and have people be able, former or active duty, continue to sign this and add to it, like a living document, you know?
That's a good
Like I
point.
said, there's a petition going around about now.
Yeah, oh, is there?
Yeah. Somebody sent it to me.
Oh, there's a petition that's being added to this
Yeah.
of citizens.
Yeah.
Right, so-
There's over 3,000 signatures on it.
Good.
Interesting.
Before that, all 3,000 signatures. 'Cause I have a petition going right now.
Somebody sent it to me.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording this. Anybody else have any comments you want to make? This is going to get uploaded to YouTube as a live event.
You got something, Jason?
Do I have something?
You always have some.
I don't know, man. You know, when you start, I don't know if y'all heard any of these actuaries, these people who are insurance adjusters, and the overall death rate with this stuff is like every time someone dies, I think that they take the jab. You know,
Right.
my family's fiance just died. You know, that he'd been with for a long time. She had heart problems, and she took the jab. You know. So we're sitting back watching this genocide happen, you know, watching the news. All news is operated by the CIA. I don't care. I mean, Fox News, they're the worst. They're the worst. Of all the stuff going on around the world, what's happening with the genocide, you know, it's just like they set the agenda for what they think you need to be, what they think you need to think is important. All right, and so everybody's sitting around waiting for something to happen, like wait for someone else to do something about it.
What do you expect?
You know, and part of this thing is exactly what is going on. Sit down, GI, don't do a dang thing. They're just murdering all your people. Just lay down, we got this handled, we're going to be taking office, and some be handled in the next 5-10 years. We don't got 5 to 10 years. You know, I think they're going to pull some massive shenanigans, and I know, you know, God's going to protect us, but I think, you know, this year is going to be massive. You know, they're advertising it, you know, with Cyber Polygon. You know, this Israeli firm during the COVID approached all the hospitals in America, and they're a cybersecurity company. They said, hey, we'll give you your cybersecurity for free. All right. So they have all the healthcare, like a lot of companies, healthcare companies took them up on this. And it's ran by an Israeli general. All right. It's his company. And this is not the Israel what we thought it is. You know, these are the Ashkenazis that are running this stuff. Right? And so now they got one of their people in there running all the cybersecurity for all the hospitals across the nation. Not all the hospitals, but a bunch of them. And so they're just, you know, they've already gamed out Cyber Polygon. The World Economic Forum did this. They also did Event 201, okay, which gamed out COVID 2-3 months before it happened. The exact same scenario, what happened. And what did people do? They went along with it. They put on their mask. They locked down. Okay, I'm going to slow the spread. Only 2 weeks? Okay, I'm not going to go anywhere for 2 weeks. Right? But they slowly just kept going like this, all right? Imposing their will on the people, all right? And it's kind of, like you said, it's fascism, all right? When corporations impose their will on the people, that is the definition of fascism. When corporations settle up with government to impose their will onto the people, that is the definition of fascism. So if the United States, bankrupt or not, is a corporation, don't we live in a fascist society?
There's Lincoln thing.
All right? And that Lincoln guy up there was our first real dictator. You know?
That's true.
I mean, he was our first dictator. We're still under his martial law.
But it's all war crimes. That's what I call it. And forced medical experiments and war crimes. And under the Nuremberg Code, I mean, you can find, and when you start bringing that stuff up, all of a sudden they don't want to talk to you anymore. It's like those nurses that I helped at the MD Anderson Houston Center, Cancer Center in Houston. There was a nurse, a friend of mine, Peter Riccioni. His wife was a nurse there, been there for like 25 years, and they sent her an email and said, "Prepare to take the jab or prepare to be terminated." And so I filed felony criminal complaints. He sent me a copy of the email. And so it had a proprietary statement on it, so I couldn't use it as evidence. But I filed felony criminal complaints against the MD Anderson Cancer Center is owned by the University of Texas. And the University of Texas has a board of regents. And on that board of regents, there's 3 lawyers and a chief counsel. So the lawyers, they would never have done that without getting some lawyers to look at it first. And the lawyers are deemed to know the law. So I filed 4 felony criminal complaints against each lawyer. Excuse me. And 1 for violating her rights under the color of law, 1 for conspiracy to threaten, coerce, injure, intimidate her in the free exercise of her rights, 1 for satanic religious ceremony with their fear agenda and their sorcery with their forced pharmaceuticals, and 1 for war crimes with their forced medical experiment, and the war crimes can be tied with the religious stuff too. Anyways, so I sent them to the Texas DPS, to the FBI, to the Provost Marshal General in Washington, D.C., and within 2 weeks, she gets an email, and it said, "You've been granted a religious exemption." And she hadn't even applied for a religious exemption.
How did they know it was her?
Sorry?
How did they know it was her?
Well, because I said they're violating her rights under the color of
You
law.
named her in the letter.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so she gets an email saying that you've been granted a religious exemption. What they've been doing, another thing they've been doing, is they've been offering a religious exemption, but then they had this questionnaire that you could fill out, right? Well, that's a war crime. Okay, they're coercing information from you. It's none of their damn business what her religious beliefs are. All she has to do is say, "It's my religious belief." That's all she has to do, and they have to give it to her, and so they gave her a religious exemption. She hadn't even applied for one, and then they told everybody that had previously applied for a religious exemption to reapply, and then they also, about a week later, they came out and said, "If you want to take it, you can. Otherwise, don't worry about it." So again, you got to bring up the right issues. You got to use their codes. Okay, you got to use their codes, and the words in their codes. It's got to be in their codes. And so, but when you do that, I mean, there's a lot of good people that work for government. They're not all a bunch of crooks, and so there's good people that are there, and the good people will do something about it. But you got to use their words.
We had too many people worried about their jobs and retirement.
I know. That's
There
true.
ain't going to be any jobs and retirement if they kill us anyway. The Federal Reserve is going away.
Well, if they,
Worried about the retirement.
yeah, if you wind up in those pictures, you know, the ones with all the bodies piled there, then that's not going to be an issue. And the founding fathers, I think they understood that completely, and that's why that they revolted against the crown. Okay, they said, "Screw you," you know. They give them the finger, and they said, "You know, we're done here." And again, at the end of the day, all political power comes at the barrel of a gun, and so hopefully it doesn't come to that. But what do they say? You have to plan for the worst, hope for the best, plan for the worst, and so you know that's what we all need to be doing: is hope for the best. Plan for the worst, and if necessary, you know, we were all here when the universe was created. We'll all be here when it goes away. And this life is really just nothing. It's in our existence. And so we were all born for this time.
Would you like to listen to any of this commentary between Dorset and the Charcasi?
I wouldn't mind, but right now I got this video. I got to finish it up.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but anyways, so my attitude is that I don't want to be here anyways. I'll be here as long as God wants me here, and the sooner I'm out of here, the better. And so, you know, I get up in their face and I say, "Go ahead, take me out back, blow my brains out. I don't want to be here anyways. In the meantime, I'm going to be the biggest pain in your butt that you can possibly imagine." And so I just get up in their face, and they run and hide.
Yeah, but Paul said he wanted to go too, but it was more needful for him to stay here. We, as believers, we have hope you know, it's good to focus on the darkness to be prepared, but to have solutions because we have hope. You know,
I agree. I agree.
We have hope.
I agree.
I just want to read you all something. It says, this is in Proverbs 3, and it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. And direct means to make smooth or straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, means respect the Lord, and depart from evil, which is what you're saying here. You're saying that rebellion to tyranny is obedience to God. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. It will be health to your flesh and strength to your bones. Talking about all the pharmaceutical stuff. Honor the Lord with your possessions plural, and with the first fruits of all your increase. So your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. You know, God was not ignorant of our times. And I think people think that he was ignorant of these times.
No, he knows exactly what's going on.
Exactly. And it says, and I'll read in chapter 4, and it says, get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forget nor turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, and she will preserve you. Love her, and she will keep you. Wisdom is the principal thing. Get wisdom. If all you're getting, get understanding. Exalt her, wisdom, and she will promote you. This is a promise. She will bring you honor when you embrace her. She will place on your head an ornament of grace, a crown of glory she will deliver to you. Hear, my son, and receive my sayings, and the years of your life will be many. So if you don't hear his sayings, that could lead to an untimely death. I have taught you in the way of wisdom. I have led you in right paths. You said that. You were here for such a time as this. When you walk, your steps will not be hindered, and when you run, you will not stumble. Take firm hold of instruction. Do not let her go. Keep her, for she is your light. And it talks about don't enter the path of the wicked. How do we know what the path of the wicked is? God shows you what the path of the wicked is, because if he is your father, you know, we've had good fathers, we've had bad fathers, but if you ask a good father for bread, he's not going to give you stone, right? If you ask him for fish, he's not going to give you a serpent. But it says, avoid the path of the wicked, because they don't sleep unless they've done evil. Their sleep is taken away unless they make someone fall. People think that these people are living such joyous lives, but they don't sleep. They don't sleep unless they cause someone to fall. They don't have, they're run by their father, the devil, and the lust of their father they will do. It says they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. But in contrast, our life, the path of the just is like the shining sun that shines even brighter unto the perfect day. The way of wicked is like darkness. They do not know what makes them stumble. But we don't have to stumble. You know, so many people, they talk about everything, the negatives that are happening, but they don't ever have a solution. They just bitch and complain. But we have solutions to things. We have answers to things. If we're Christians, and you said it very well, Glenn, if we're Christians and we believe God, are we the light of the world? Or are we just scared, gelatinous mold that don't do anything? And God knows, and like we know if we're doing our best, and we know if we're just kind of going through the motions.
Fear is the opposite of faith.
Yeah, fear is the opposite of faith.
Right.
And I believe that we have such an opportunity because we were so in the dark. Like Elijah was told to the people, choose God or choose Baal. There was a time before we couldn't make a choice because there was such darkness, there was such a haze, there was such whatever it is. And now God is removing the haze and he's saying, choose me or choose Baal. There's no in between. There's no in between with your health. There's no in between with your relationships. There's no in between with anything.
Right.
We choose God or we choose Baal, or we might not make it.
There's a polarization happening. And it's getting to where it's either one or the other. There used to be lots of grays, lots of fence sitters. And it's all polarizations happening where people are being forced to,
Make a choice.
That's right.
You have to make a choice.
Anyways, I'm going to make that the end of this video, and I thank you guys for listening. And so this is going to be uploaded as a live event. And